Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the next edition of Business as Usual by Louis Blow. Today we're going to be looking at a little intro, a brief description. We're going to be looking at chapter 4 and 5 of our management textbook. We're going to go into a little appreciation and conclusion. Next up, the intro. So, chapter 4, it's about planning and decision making. Chapter 5 is about organizational strategy. And why did I choose these chapters? Well, I for this project I assumed the role of a student slash consultant. So somebody that's going to go into a company and help them deal and improve their management practices. So I chose these two chapters because I thought that they related to that specific area the best. The other chapters are very good as well, but for this specific project, I chose those two. My premise, like I just said, small business or a consultant, student, all that type of little thing. My goal is to show how these chapters affect it, how they're different, how they're the same, and how I did this. Well, you're about to find out. Let's keep going. So, theory and reality for chapter 4. In the textbook, they discuss the benefits and the shortcomings of planification. So, the benefit could be that you have a concrete plan for the next 6 months, you know what you're going to do and how. And a shortcoming could be because you have such a concrete plan, you're not able or willing to be more flexible. In the textbook, we also introduce decision-making strategies that make it easier to act rapidly in a company. This is very good. Now, this adds flexibility, so it sort of counters what I just said. So for a very good plan, you want to have both of these. In reality, chapter 4, or the things discussed in chapter 4, are far more nuanced than in the textbook, so there's a lot more stuff to go into. But I mean, you have to understand that a textbook can only hold so much information. And in reality, also, sorry, in the textbook, they constantly reinforce ethical and moral points of view, whereas in real life, obviously, there's not a constant reinforcing of these issues because people do take bribes, people aren't always ethical, and people aren't always moral. And now that's why our teacher, Mr. Forbes, is very kind and he likes to reinforce this in us a lot. And hopefully, we're all going to be a little bit more ethical in our business practices. Theory and reality continued. In the textbook for chapter 5, they go into detail about sustainable competitive advantages. This is super, super important. I like to call it as well sustainable competitive development because this is how you're going to grow your company using these advantages without growing so fast that you fall apart. They also discuss strategies such as the situational analysis, which help target key areas for development in a company. Now, choosing what you're going to develop and why is probably the most important thing because you could develop 100 million different things for your company, but it's choosing which ones you need to target and spend your limited budget on that are going to help you grow well. In reality, the chapter 5 talks mainly about corporate or top level management. They don't talk much about lower level management. We didn't see that much, which is important because there has to be a connection between top and bottom if anything's going to work. And we saw this in the Chinese and American factory experiment in the documentary. We saw that there was not a connection between the top and the bottom management, and it wasn't working very well. And that's why it's harder to see these objectives through in real life. So, next slide, theory versus reality continued. The textbook in chapter 5 differ in real life when it comes to the difficulty to implement strategies. I talked about this a little bit with the Chinese American example. Saying something is easy, actually doing it is always hard. Then the team or floor level management, I would have liked the textbook to talk about this a little bit more to really see how there's a connection between top and bottom management. I didn't see that much, and it would have been interesting to know more about it. What is realistic, however, is the analysis techniques that they present to really know where you stand, your situational analysis. That was good, that was interesting, and I'm glad they talked about it. Finally, my appreciation, what I liked was, I just mentioned it, the analyses. I enjoyed sort of the actual content of the chapters. I liked going through them, and overall, I think it was very, very interesting. But I didn't like the fact that there were certain elements that, in my point of view, were lacking. Now, some people might think that everything was there, but for me, it's mainly out of my own interest. Some things were maybe lacking. Overall appreciation, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think that's very good for a textbook. Would I recommend these types of strategies and planning to other people? Absolutely. I think that's the basis of business. And I mean, you need to know how to develop sustainably. You need to know how to make plans and strategize if you're gonna be a consultant, if you're gonna even be a good student. You just need to know all this stuff. In conclusion, there are certain differences between the book and real life, but the book is fairly consistent when it comes to techniques and strategies used by business. And finally, I'm going to present to you my sources. I use the book, the PowerPoint slides, the American Factory movie, which I talked about quite a bit, Jonathan Forbes, our teacher, and of course, you can't do anything without Wikipedia. Now here I have a question section. If you have any, let me know and I'll gladly answer them. Thank you very much.